Hello and welcome to the Michael Mamas Show. I'm your host, Michael Mamas, and we're coming to you from Mount Soma, home of the Sri Someshwara Temple in the mountains of western North Carolina. I had a whole other podcast that I thought I was going to be doing, but in light of that assassination attempt, it's interesting. When I saw it, and it was, of course, shocking and dramatic and all that, but I feel like this morning when I woke up, just this morning, somehow it impacted me more, the very idea. And I just thought we should talk about it, So that's what this podcast is about today. And certainly everything is best viewed in context of the bigger picture, which is what we talk about, the underlying base of existence. Everything comes out of that, living in harmony with nature of that, or not living in harmony with nature, which is that. But at any rate, I just can't help feeling we'll never get to the bottom of who that guy who tried to assassinate Trump, who that guy is. There was a student friend of mine whose father, I've mentioned him before, I think, in podcasts. His father was very high up in the federal government, I think assistant attorney general, I think it was. But anyway, he told my student, his son, he said, if you think you have any idea what's really going on, you're kidding yourself. And I think that's as true today. I know it is, as it ever was, And Scotty, you have, maybe think about the JFK assassination.
Yeah.
And you're more knowledgeable about all that than I am, Scotty. So what's the latest theory about who killed JFK? Who was behind that?
The latest theory is that the CIA was involved, along with various, like gang, like the mafia type things.
When you say it like that, I mean, I think first reaction, I remember when I first heard that, now that you remind me, it's like, oh, come on, But the more you talked about it and explained it to me, it has something to do with the Bay of Pigs and all that. What was that about?
Yeah, well, the Bay of Pigs and all that has to do with the mafia wanting to go into Cuba to set up
casinos and all.
Yeah, and then that all got shut down. And
then what's that got to do with the CIA?
Well, and then there's also the people. There's so many people that wanted him not to be around based on what he was wanting to do, which was pull out of Vietnam, or not become involved in Vietnam. Which now you've messed with the the war machine, which gives them motivation.
And I think also the CIA had a perspective on the Bay of Pigs that was different from JFK's. Is that right?
Yeah.
What was their perspective as opposed to his?
Again, now you're talking about being able to go in there and take over too.
And who wanted to do that? JFK or the CIA?
The CIA.
And so why did they sabotage the Bay of Pigs? Evidently, they wanted it to fail to make him look bad.
Exactly. Right? They didn't give the force any help. There were so they kind of basically sabotaged that whole thing. They would, at the last minute, they pulled
but it was mostly just to compromise JFK.
Right.
And then I also, you hear all kinds. It's really interesting because what is conspiracy theory and what is history and fact, I think, was it you telling me? I also heard somewhere that JFK was talking about releasing all the information about the UFOs.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to kill him for that. And then I think you told me, Scotty, that what was it about another motivating factor, the CIA and why they wanted to get rid of JFK. I don't know. It just seems like it gets more and more convoluted. I'm trying to remember the different things you told me.
Yeah, there's a lot, of reasons. I can't remember them exactly all right now.
And so then, well, this all made me think about like that in The Godfather, history repeats itself because when Michael Corleone was talking to Kay, and he looked her up because he wanted to marry her, and they got in a conversation, and she was saying, oh, I thought you were going to give up the mafia business because they kill people, and Michael said his father is no different than any other powerful man like senators and congressmen. And she said, do you realize how naive you sound? And he said, oh, who's being naive, Kay? And then you look at these theories and look what the CIA has done to Trump. I mean, if you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump, you can still look at it. And invading Mar-a-Lago the way they did, his house in Florida, and then the whole court system. I mean, anybody who takes an objective look at what's been going on in the courts, particularly in New York, where 34 convictions. And then you think of this quote that, if you really think you know what's going on, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah.
And so who knows? One thing I can tell you is that there'll be enough smoke and mirrors involved in this whole thing that I'm not saying it's true, I don't know, but if that guy that tried to kill Trump yesterday was somehow working for the mafia or the government or CIA or what have you, they'll bury it so many different ways. We would never know. We would never know. The whole thing right now, it's also convoluted. And I just want to go right back. I mean, it's right in the Veda. The fundamental principles are right there. The fishbowl of global consciousness is polluted. It is. You see these pictures of planet Earth taken from, outer space, the moon or what have you. And you see all these currents like clouds and things swirling around the planet. And weather patterns, things like that. You can see even on the, weather.com or whatever weather station there is, and you see the swirlings. Everything exists transgradiently. There's a reality continuum there. And I've talked about that a good deal, but like gravity on one level is just you drop an apple and it falls to the ground. Gravity on another level is everything gravitates back to oneness. So these are universal principles that exist and manifest in different ways on different levels of existence. And the weather is like that. There's actual physical weather, whether or not it's going to rain or snow or what have you. And there's, on a deeper level, there's weather that is global consciousness. And it swirls around the planet and it moves through the planet in waves. And as the seasons change, and now we're talking with respect to global consciousness, really, we're talking about the yugas, the huge long time periods. And that's like the different seasons, you know. And right now we're in Kali Yuga. It's just such a nasty time. You know, it's the age of oblivion, you know. And I was actually going to do a little bit on anger, hatred, grumpiness. It just seems like the whole world is angry, hateful, grumpy. And that's the weather. That's the weather. And so just like with the fish in a fishbowl, when it gets dirty, some fish are going to succumb to it more readily than others and in different ways than others. I remember I noticed there was a fishbowl that wasn't being taken care of. And I remember noticing that there were certain fish, and they were like the cruder fish. I mean, they weren't the ones with the veils and all that, but they seemed to thrive better the dirtier a fishbowl got. And even that, I think that maps, I think it correlates. All that's changing. And it felt to me like with this assassination attempt, I think it's a phase transition. It's a mark of a phase transition. We're going into a different time now. That's a huge wake-up call for society. And, you know, I saw some of these politicians get up there, the ones that were clearly Trump haters, you know, they basically wanted to throw him in prison, convict him of treason, things like that. And then you see him get up there on the news and, oh, how wrong it was and how terrible it was. And yeah, that's the truth. It's wrong and it's terrible. But you can't help but wonder, I mean, how, if there was some sort of a backing for this assassin attempt, they would get up and say exactly what they're saying. Oh, how terrible it was, how wrong it is. So we don't know. Truth or oblivion, we will never know. Anyway, the solution is in the Vedic literature. And see, that's another thing that maps. Your car needs to get the oil change. You need to clean the house from time to time. Brush your teeth regularly. Things, it's a law of increasing entropy in physics, increasing chaos. You have to keep putting order into a system or it goes to heck, you know? And that's polluted fishbowl. And it's remarkable. It is remarkable that most fundamental, on the most fundamental level, that's just ignored. It's not even considered a possibility when it's extensively discussed in the Veda, and the technology is right there. How to build a machine, basically, an enlightened city, we call it, but how to build a machine that will clean the fishbowl. Simple, straightforward technology. There's a technology to a cell phone. If you didn't know about a cell phone, experience a cell phone, how in the heck could you pick up a cell phone and call somebody on the other side of the planet? It's a technology. That's all. But we live in small little worlds with narrow little viewpoints on the nature of reality. And that which does not correspond to our narrow little viewpoint, we reject as bogus, as false. But the world's waking up. And I do believe we are about to enjoy a phase transition into an enlightened age. But phase transitions can be chaotic. I talked about the phase transition when water gets colder, and then turns to ice. Ice is more coherent. It's a lattice structure, a crystalline structure. But as the water gets colder and colder, and that right at 0 degrees centigrade, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, there's a moment of tremendous chaos. And that's what's going on now. We're in that moment of chaos. So just hang in there for another year. This is all going to get straightened out. We're in for great times. And for right now, we just need to endure. But that phase transition can happen as an Armageddon, or it can happen as a failed assassination attempt, and anything in between. So this next year is crucial. I saw this quote, it's in the notes, Emily Dickinson. Truth is so rare, it is delightful to tell it. I'm not so sure I completely agree with that, because it can be really frustrating to tell it and then people don't hear it. So I would say it's more like truth is more rare, more delightful when it is spoken and then received and acknowledged. When it's received and acknowledged, when it's heard, when it's embraced, that's when it becomes truly delightful. And even this, the technology is there. If you just look at these, there's so much evidence of ancient knowledge and even the ancient ruins. You'll see that it's getting more and more popular about how sophisticated the ancient ruins were at times that were when those were built. But who hears that? Who wants to believe that? I think a lot of people would prefer to believe that we are the most evolved, most enlightened civilization that ever existed on Earth. But if you look at the Vedic literature, the Vimanas, the flying machines, and when we talk about, it really bothers me, they talk about UFOs coming to Earth and greater technology. Those technologies have been around a lot. They come and they go, and it's not unique to some other planet. Different times, different civilizations, different levels of sophistication and understanding. And if anybody thinks that they built the pyramids with copper chisels, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. All right. Anything else, Scotty?
No.
I hope you all allow me this. I just needed to talk about it. And just hang in there. A year from now, we're going to start to really see things take off. And that's not something I'm predicting. That's something that's in the literature. Lord Krishna told Mother Divine that, according to Vedic literature, 5,000 years ago. So we're 1 year away from that. Okay. All right. Thanks for listening. Take care.